everyone, my name is Kayla and I am a culinary demonstrator from Johnson Wales University, and I am back for another episode of Quarantine Cuisine. For today's recipe, we are going to be making curry and homemade naan. So if you're not familiar with those, they are an Indian cuisine recipe. Naan is just like a type of flatbread, and curry is a type of super stew using Indian flavors and spices. So for today, I'm going to be focusing on a coconut yellow curry powder recipe. This is just what I had in my pantry and in my kitchen. And then I'm doing all vegetables today as well, but you can use meat if you want. I just wanted to keep this simple and use what I already had. So for the first step, you're gonna wanna heat up a saucepan just like this. If you have something a little bit bigger, depending how much curry you wanna make, you can use a little bit bigger pot. But for today, I'm only making this for a couple people, me and my fiance. So I'm gonna stick with a little small sauce pot right here. I'm gonna heat up my pan to medium to high heat, and then we're gonna start out with our oil, a little bit of garlic and ginger. If you guys wanna follow along, the recipe is linked below, and it does have exact measurements as well. So I'm gonna get this hot. We're gonna add our oil, our ginger, and our garlic first with a little bit of oil. And my ginger and garlic. And you're just gonna wanna give this a little stir with a spoon or a spatula. And then once that gets heated up, you can go ahead and add your onions. That already smells really, really good. Just go ahead and add in your onions. If it gets a little dry, you can add a little more oil. And you're gonna wanna cook this down until your onions start to become translucent. All right, and now you're gonna wanna add your carrots and bell pepper. So you're always gonna wanna add the veggies that take a little bit longer to cook first. And then you're gonna wanna add the veggies that take the least amount of time last. So my kale and my chickpeas, those are gonna go last. But just to get this going, we're gonna stir this together. Right now I just have garlic, onion, a little bit of oil, carrots, and bell pepper. You could add celery if you wanted. Again, I'm just using what I already have in my pantry. So we're gonna let this cook down a little bit more. Okay, so now that my veggies are getting soft, this is on a low simmer, I'm gonna add my spices. So I have curry powder and garam masala in here. These are just, again, Indian spices. If you want exact measurements, go ahead and check out the recipe. But I'm just gonna toss those in, and they're gonna start to cook, and you're gonna really start to smell your curry powder get nice and fragrant. And then we're gonna add about a cup of snow peas. You can use snap peas or whatever type of pea you want, or any vegetable that you want, or whatever vegetable that you have in your pantry already. So I'm gonna let this cook down. I'm actually going to add my cauliflower now. We'll just go ahead and add all of it. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of veggie broth so that the cauliflower can cook down a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and add our coconut milk and coconut cream next. Okay, so my curry is coming to a boil. I'm gonna go ahead and take our lid off here. Set that down, turn the heat down a little bit. I have one diced tomato. If you have a tomato, go ahead and toss that in. If you have canned tomatoes, you can use canned tomatoes. And then I'm gonna add our coconut milk and our coconut cream. And the cream you can just get from the top of the in a can. It's just the top layer in a can of coconut milk. And then on the bottom should be the liquid part. So go ahead and do a little bit of the cream, a little bit of the milk. Give that a nice stir. Let the cream kind of melt down. Again, we want this to be a soup consistency. That's just the way I like it. I love dipping my naan bread in it and like using the naan bread as a spoon. That's usually how, you know, in the olden days, how people used to eat actually. Before silverware and spoons were invented, they would use bread to scoop their food with. So I will show you guys how to make the naan bread next. And that's what we're gonna use to dip into our curry. So I'm just giving this a nice stir. And then our ingredients that we have left, a little bit of salt and pepper, lime juice, some kale, and our chickpeas. And I'm going to transfer this into a bigger pot once I add everything, just because it's starting to fill up a little bit. This looks like a ton of kale, but it's actually gonna cook down a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this into a bigger pot. Okay, so I went ahead and transferred my curry into a bigger pot. And now I'm gonna add my chickpeas, just one pan, and all of my kale. You can use spinach, collards, any type of green would work. I love kale, and so I always have it in my fridge. Again, I'm just using what I have in my fridge. We are focusing on pantry staples and using things that you guys already have. So don't overthink what your ingredients are. Just use what you have, whatever you can pull out of the fridge, and throw that in. So I'm gonna bring this back up to a boil, and I'm gonna let the kale wilt down, and then we'll go ahead and finish off our curry, and we'll move on to the naan. Okay, so now that my kale is all wilted down, I'm gonna add a pinch of salt and pepper. Don't forget to season your soups, guys. And this is about 1.5 limes juiced. And that's just gonna give it a very fresh, acidic touch to it. And that is it, you guys. So it's pretty basic. You can mix around the spices that you use, toss in some curry paste if you have it. This is just a basic recipe for curry, and you can have fun with it. Add whatever you want. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside. I'm gonna get out all of our naan. Mise en place is ready to go, and I will show you guys how to make homemade flatbread naan. Okay, guys, so for our homemade naan, you're gonna want to start out with 2 cups of flour. So I already measured that out, and then we're gonna add a tablespoon of baking powder. This is not necessary, but I will say it does help the naan get a little more fluffy. So 1 tablespoon baking powder, and then we're gonna add about a teaspoon of salt. I'm eyeballing it. I never measure with salt. And then that's our dry ingredient. So go ahead and give that a stir. Make a little well in the middle of your bowl, just like that. Add a 1/2 cup of water, a 1/4 cup of milk, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. These are all ingredients that most people do have in their pantry. Again, this is going to be a pretty basic recipe, and it's really good to dip in the curry. So using a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula, go ahead and give that a stir. If it's a little too dry, you could add a little more liquid like water or milk. But before you think it's too dry, give it a mix all the way, because you might be surprised that it doesn't need any more liquid. This will depend on the type of flour that you're using. I did just use all-purpose flour. If you use whole wheat flour, it might come out a little more dry. But you want it to come together into a ball of dough. So mine's looking really like dry and flaky, and it's not really coming together. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more water, just so I can make it come together into a ball. So you just wanna add a little bit of water. Keep stirring. Once it comes together, you can use your hands to help it form into a ball of dough. Mine is looking a little too dry. There it goes. So now it's really starting to come together into a big ball, just like that. So now you're gonna wanna flour your surface or your counter. And then you can take your ball of dough and roll it out. Make sure you get every little bit. And this is going to make about 6 naan 6 pieces of naan. If you want to double it, it'll make 12. You can never have too much bread, in my opinion. And it should be pretty soft, so you're gonna want to kind of knead it together. Don't worry about over mixing. If it's too wet, you can add flour. If it's too dry, add water. This is the easy thing about this recipe is you can kind of fix it if you add too much of one thing. The curry is done. It smells so good. I'm so excited to eat it. It has all my favorite vegetables in it. Okay, so now that your ball is good, you don't need to let it rest or anything. There's no yeast in it, so don't worry about that. You're just gonna want to split it up into about 6 even pieces. Depending how big you want your naan, you could do 4 or 5 pieces. 6 usually seems to be the perfect amount and the perfect size. And they don't have to be even. This is all at-home cooking. It can be rustic. Don't worry about it. So now I have 6 even balls. And I'm just going to start rolling each one out with my rolling pin. And you can get creative with this. You can add rosemary, you could add garlic, you can add a ton of different spices if you want flavored naan. I'm just sticking with simplicity today. So I'm not gonna add anything. And you're just gonna wanna roll them out. Don't make them too thin. Until they're about this size. Go ahead and set them aside. You can layer them with a piece of paper towel. I do not have paper towel right now, so I'm just gonna lay these out separately. All right, now that all my pieces are rolled out, I'm going to show you guys how to cook them really quick. But yeah, it's pretty easy for the most part. Okay, so now to cook your naan, you're gonna wanna heat up a medium saute pan on your burner. Go ahead and lay down one of your pieces of naan. If you're afraid it's going to stick to your pan, if you don't have a good non-stick pan, go ahead and just lay down a little bit of olive oil. Make sure it's evenly coated, and then you can go ahead and put your piece of naan on. Mine is already going. You're gonna cook about 2 to 4 minutes on each side, but it should look golden brown on the bottom. It's not going to stick. I wouldn't worry about it sticking, but if you are, go ahead and lay some olive oil down. And again, they're just gonna cook, and you can tell once they're done, they're gonna get a little bit of golden brown, and they're not gonna look as doughy. Okay, so I'm just gonna give a quick overview of Johnson Wales University. So we do have 4 campuses spread out across the country. So our main campus is in Providence, Rhode Island. We have one in Charlotte, North Carolina, North Miami, Florida, and then Denver, Colorado. So aside from our culinary and baking and pastry programs, we do have a ton of other majors that we offer. Hospitality, criminal justice, fashion, merchandising and retailing, business, entrepreneurship, nutrition, the list goes on and on. So what makes us unique? So we do teach a hands-on learning experience, and we also teach an upside-down curriculum. So that just means that you're gonna be in the field working with industry professionals, and you're gonna be taking classes that are related to your major your first and second year. So that's super exciting. That way you get to kind of feel it out, see what the program is gonna be like right away. For on-campus life, we try and keep our students as involved as we can. So we do have clubs and orgs that you guys can join. We have ton of events that we host throughout the year. There are dorms on all of our campuses, so you can live in dorms if you live far away. We'd love for you guys to find out more information. You can always visit our website or go to the link on the next slide to request some more information. Thank you guys so much for following along with me, and I'll see you in my next video.